I never know if that's on the topic. Okay, we are going to call our meeting to order. It is 1:01 p.m. So welcome everyone, those of you joining us in person and also online. I'm Bree Saman, the chair of this commission. And first we'll start by going around and doing commission introductions. As I mentioned, my name is Bree Saman and I am a interior designer and project manager. Lars, would you like to kick
Yes, I'm Lars Feldman. I'm a general contractor. I'm in the mayor's office.
I'm Nick Pucianos. I'm an architect and a developer, and I was nominated by the American Institute of Architects.
I'm Erica Warzel. I'm an architectural historian and preservation consultant, and I was nominated by the community at large.
And I'm Emily Hazen, preservationist and designer, nominated by city planning.
And I'm Brittany Bryant. I'm Denver Landmark Preservation staff.
Chris, if you're on,
I don't see.
okay.
Is having trouble logging on in the new link.
Get him logged on.
Okay. Well, and we'll have another commission member, Chris, joining us shortly as well. It will be virtually. Okay. So in regards to general comments from commission or staff, do members of the commission or staff have anything that they'd like to share? Okay. For meeting records for approval. Do the commissioners have any comments or clarification regarding the minutes from our meeting on April 7th? So hearing no major objections or comments, the meeting minutes are approved. So before I move on to the next agenda items, for those of you joining us virtually, we do have a few audio tips. For better sound quality, we strongly encourage you to download Zoom on your desktop, laptop, tablet, or mobile device. Click audio settings to bring up an additional menu, add a background noise suppression, and test your speaker and microphone and adjust their maximum output volumes. For presenters or public commenters, when it is your turn to speak, please mute or unmute. Click on the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. When expanding the menu next to the microphone will reveal additional options. Select your speaker and microphone devices. Test your microphone and speakers to adjust their maximum output volumes. If you still have audio challenges, switch to phone for audio. Chris, if you want to have him introduce himself. And now that Chris has joined us, Chris, if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Sure. Can you get everybody hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. My name is Chris McInnes. I'm a forensic architect and I was nominated by the mayor's office.
Great, thank you. Okay, so moving into our public comment period. Please note that we do have a public hearing portion of our agenda as well, and that is a different portion of the agenda. So at this time for public comment, this is for members of the public to speak, and you will have 2 minutes each. And these are for comments about historic preservation in general and items that are on the consent review agenda, the design review agenda, business items, and discussion items only. Further comments on these topics will not be taken later in the meeting unless allowed by myself, the chair. For public hearing agenda items, again, those will be taken immediately following each item when we move to that section of the agenda. So we'll start with folks in the room, but for those of you joining us online, when we move to that portion, if you would like to speak, click the hand raise button in Zoom, dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone. And if you have any difficulty, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number, and we'll be able to get you into the queue that way. So with that, we will open it up for public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to start? Okay, I saw you first. Go ahead.
Is there a speaker that you'd like to have?
Yeah, so if you'd like to join us up here at the table.
Great.
Well, 1 second, and we have the timer up for you.
When you're ready, Keith.
Okay. Hi, Keith Pryor here, Chair of the Curtis Park Neighbors Design Review Committee, here to talk about 978 32nd Street. This committee did meet with the applicant, and this is their second submittal. The first one you denied, which we greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. This one has much better context, mass, form, and scale, which fits that of the context of our historic district. We have been working with the applicant. Staff did have some concerns with a couple of main issues, which we disagree respectfully with staff. The height, if you look at the original submittal, that height was similar to the height that is being presented to you today, and staff did not have any issue with that height originally. So we're a little uncertain as to why height has become an issue when that original application was fine with staff with the height. So we do appreciate and hope that you approve without condition the height issue. The porch was something that we felt was critical to this building. This is a commercial / civic building, something that is not a residential structure. It will be in Curtis Park. It is the Pole House. We feel that it needs to celebrate that entrance. We feel that this building is pulling elements in from the district and reinterpreting them nicely. It is a grand entrance, and it does have a cantilever reflecting porches that are found within the district, and it's doing it in a really contemporary, modern way that draws the elements. There's been a lot of historic and modern infills that have reinterpreted our porches that this commission has approved previously. The width, we feel, is within those 25 and 50 modulation pieces is what we really went for, and that is all to the district itself and how those block and how we iterate our housing basically components. So the mass scale form we feel is appropriate. We feel the height is very appropriate, as well as that entry element in the porch. So please do approve this mass scale and form application. Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Happy Hames, and I am here to support the application for 3535 East 26th Avenue Parkway.
There's a separate public comment period.
It's a separate.
Yeah, sorry, it's very confusing.
It is.
So
Okay.
for the application for designation, we'll take public comment after the staff presentation, and
Okay,
and there's a 3-minute public comment period
Okay, thank you.
then. So sorry, it's confusing.
Everything.
Go ahead, Jay.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Jay Homestead, representing Historic Denver at 1420 Ogden Street, Denver, Colorado 80218. Historic Denver is pleased to offer our support for this phase 1 application for the Mestizo Curtis Park Pool and Pool House Reconstruction Project. Mestizo Curtis Park is Denver's oldest recreational green space, and it carries deep significance for many communities across the city. Its history reflects both the best of Denver's civic tradition and some of the more complicated chapters in how public spaces have been accessed and experienced. We've been following the evolution of this project and appreciate the care of the team at HDR has brought to aligning massing, scale, and contextual approach with the Curtis Park Historic District's period of significance. The recent refinements to the roof line and massing reflect a team that is listening and responding to community feedback, and that responsiveness is exactly what a project like this requires. So we look forward to seeing this project continue through the design process, and we encourage the commission to support the application. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eileen Feldman, and I've lived in Curtis Park, it's now the historic district, for over 45 years, and I'm here to support the redesign with a few things that I don't agree with. I do not agree with the staff recommendation that the height of the grand entrance come down. I do think it needs to be celebrated. I believe it's currently at 20 feet, and it's essentially a commercial space. And if you look at commercial buildings in and around the area, while they might not be in that particular landmark district, they are very telling of era and in that immediate area. I mean, it's only recently we broke things up into these little districts. So I would encourage the commission to approve without conditions the height. And if they're going to make any adjustments at all on the height, I would say bring up the other portions of the lower part of the building up a little bit if you don't want that big 4-foot thing, but still have it up a little bit, maybe some little undulations between, I don't mean minor height differences that we see in some buildings between the different segments. But I encourage you guys to approve without conditions on the height. The only thing I did find a little odd that I did agree with staff was the placement, and I don't know if this is really part of mass form and scale, but the placement of the ghost windows, I think the rhythm of those could be better. But I encourage the commission to accept this, like with what I said, and this really took a lot of effort of community coming forward and working with Denver Parks and Recreation and their architect. So thank you.
Hi, my name is John Hayden. I reside at 2418 Champa Street. I am here in support of the new Mestizo Curtis Park pool building. And I think that this was a fantastic process of the city working with community to come up with the design before you. And for the community, two of the things that were important to us were the height of the building. Our homes are taller than most homes in the city. That's a characteristic of our neighborhood. And the commercial buildings are taller than the homes. So this being an important civic building, it feels like the entrance being tall feels appropriate for my neighborhood. And also having the porch. Our neighborhood has absolutely fantastic porches, and it feels entirely appropriate to have a porch on this building that celebrates the community. Thank you.
Anyone else have public comment here in the room? Anyone online? Would anyone online like to share a public comment? That is not in relation to the project. That is part of the public hearing portion for clarification. Okay, so with that, we will move on to the consent agenda. So these are routine projects that Landmark staff has determined meet the design guidelines for Denver landmark structures and districts and are recommended for commission approval without discussion. These may include violations already completed partially or in full if a compliant solution is proposed. The commission may approve these items as a group. However, any commission member may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to the regular design review agenda for further consideration. So as part of the consent agenda, we have 2026 COA 300 2832 -2834 Welton Street, 5 Points, and 2026 COA 274 7041 East. Butcher this a little, Rythofen Place, Montclair. Do any commission members need to announce ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest with either of the listed items? Okay. Do commissioners feel that we need to move either of these items from the consent agenda to the design review agenda? Okay, with that, we'll move to the motion and vote. Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Thank you, Erica.
Second.
Thank you, Nick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstained? The motion passes. If your project is approved on the consent agenda, you may leave the meeting. So moving on to the public hearings, we have one item. These are items that require a public hearing, such as a landmark designation, as we have today, or rather a landmark designation application, and certain demolition requests. For each item, following the applicant and staff presentations, the chair will call for public comment. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. So we have 3636 East 26th Avenue Parkway. Do any commission members have ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest?
Sorry, I just want to confirm, is it 3535 or 3636?
It is 3535
Okay.
East 26th. I got really excited with the sixes when I typed it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. Oh, with that, Karen, take it away.
Thank you. It's correct on this one now. So my name is Kara Hahn. I'm the Landmark Planning and Regulatory Supervisor, and we are here for 3535 East 26th Avenue Parkway, the Harris Cousins House designation application. It's located in Council District 9 in the Skyline neighborhood, and it is an owner-supported designation application coming from Dr. Renee Cousins King. And move on to the next slide. You can see here is the proposed boundary of the historic. It's accompanying that. It's the historic parcel that has been historically associated with the property, and we're gonna look at this slide a little bit later on, or this image a little bit later on, but wanted you to note the size of the property in comparison to those around it, and that'll be brought up a little bit later. Next slide, please. So for those of you who aren't familiar with this or are new to the process, Denver Landmark Preservation was established in 1967 through the Landmark Preservation Ordinance with the purposes of designating, preserving, and protecting our historic resources. And including in that is our designation applications. Next slide, please. And as you can see up here on the map, these are the properties that have been designated since 1967. The smaller red dots are individual landmarks. There are 368 of those and 60 historic districts, which comes to about 7,200 landmark buildings out of approximately the 160,000 buildings within the city and county of Denver. Next slide, please. That represents about 4.5% of the city, or about 1 in 25 structures that are designated, which is about on average for cities our size. So we want to go a little bit over process and the landmark ordinance, and then we'll start talking about the designation application itself. So who can apply for a designation? It is a community-driven process. It comes from members of the community. In this case, the property owner is the one who submitted the application. And per the landmark ordinance, In order for a structure to be designated, it needs to do 4 things. It needs to maintain its integrity. It needs to be 30 years of age or exceptionally important. It needs to meet at least 3 out of 10 criteria. And then you, as Landmark Preservation Commission, needs to consider its historic context. So for this particular application, it meets 4 out of the 10 criteria, as you can see here. B, C, D, and J. At least that's what that staff is finding that and is recommending for you for that as well. And we're going to go through each of those criteria. Next slide. So first, the property has direct and substantial association with recognized persons or groups of persons who had influence on society. There are 2 family members who are very prominent in Denver that have strong association with the property. They are the only 2 families that have owned the property. So first, Nora and Frank Harris. Nora worked for the American Woodmen Association. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's a fraternal and mutual aid organization that provided things like life insurance and home mortgages for members of Denver's Black community when they couldn't get those from other institutions. She worked as a claims department manager there, so she had a fairly influential position within this very well-respected organization. She also served on the board of directors of the Denver chapter of the NAACP. And then she and her husband Frank were part of the Cosmopolitan Club of Denver, which was an interfaith and interracial organization with the goal, or their creed was humanity above race, nationality, and creed. And so it was an organization that both of them were a member of, participated in, and sometimes hosted at the house. Frank Harris, he was Denver's first recognized landscape architect. He was self-taught, and he was very highly regarded. He started out as a smaller firm, and it grew over the next 4 decades from the 20s to the early 60s. And he worked on a wide variety of commercial, institutional, and private properties, and was very highly sought after. And as Denver's first recognized Black landscape designer and horticulturist, he was very influential within the community with owning such a prominent business. And the 2 of them, with their work and their volunteer life, had significant influence on Denver society. And then the second owners of the property, Dorothy and Charles R. Cousins, known as brother Cousins, purchased the property in 1966 from Frank and Nora. In most areas, Charles was more visible in the business, but as quoted from the designation application, his daughter Renee said that much of the success he attained in business would not have been possible without Dorothy's conscientious assistance. So as in many cases, when men are more prominent in the business world, there's often women behind who are helping and are partners in that. So they were both important within the business world. You're seeing here an image of the 715 Club's cocktail sign it's in 5 Points. It was recently redone. So this is an image of it being refurbished. And so he started and was started the 715 Club, as well as the Cue and Cushion billiard parlor in the 5 Points area, and also took over the family's real estate business as well, and was very influential within the Denver community, and particularly within Denver's Black community in the 5 Points neighborhood for the businesses that were there. Both of them were also really active within the civic realm. They were very active within the Owl Club of Denver, which was actually just recently listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It's a social and business bonds within Denver's Black community. And it also highlighted academic excellence of young Black women and had a debutante ball. Multiple people who are in the audience today were part of that. Happy Haynes, Renee, as well as Condoleezza Rice were all people who went through that and went through debutante ball there. So they were involved in the Owl Club of Denver. They helped students at Manual High School and Cole Junior High, the American Red Cross, Friends of the Denver Public Library, the Church of Holy Redeemer, as well as serving on other public entities and boards such as for the supposed to be Winter Olympics that were not actually held here, but serving on the board for that and planning for that in the 1970s. So both Dorothy and Charles were important members of Denver's community. And so when looking together at both Frank and Norris, and then Dorothy and Charles, both had strong influence on Denver society. And then for the next criteria, is that it embodies the distinctive visible characteristics of an architectural style. This is a custom designed ranch style house. So it's a very high style version of a ranch style. You can see that in its horizontal profile, 1-story, low pitched roof with wide overhanging eaves. There's a very minimal front porch, which actually you can't see in this photo, but I've seen in others. The large picture windows, the brick construction. There's an attached 2-car garage. There's also a detached 3-car garage. And then there's the open flow of the living room, dining room, and kitchen that overlooks onto the back of the property into the rear yard, which is very typical of a ranch style construction. So this property, staff finds, meets the criteria of having the distinctive visible characteristics of an architectural style. The property is also significant for the work of a recognized architect or master builder. In this case, it's a couple of design professionals. One is Frank Harris, who is the accomplished horticulturist and landscape designer. He worked on a wide variety of properties, National Jewish Hospital, Bonfils Estate, the Park Hill Golf Club, Colorado's Women's College, as well as multiple other properties. But this, as his personal residence that he designed, is a significant example of his work and overall retains good integrity. There are a few changes within the landscape design due to the death of trees and some rose bushes that basically died in shade. But other than that, this is the design that he designed for that. And so as his personal residence, it's a significant and good example of his work. And then secondly, for the architect, William Borman, he is a well-recognized Denver architect. He did a wide variety of ranch-style houses, both developments for different neighborhoods, as well as a lot of custom design work. His custom design work was typically in Wilshire, Country Club, and Crestmore. This is an excellent example of his work. But it's significant as being likely one of the first examples of his custom work in the recently desegregated Skyland neighborhood. And so a significant example of his work in this area. So staff found that he and Frank Harris were both recognized and architects and master builders. And then finally, criteria J. And so criterion J is properties that are associated with social movements, institutions, or patterns of growth or change that are significant to the culture of the neighborhood and the community. So this really tells the story of civil rights and racial integration. Denver was founded on systemic racism and institutional racism. It's found in our early 1925 zoning code, through covenants, and then particularly through redlining. You can see here to the right is the residential security map, and it shows, it's kind of narrowed into this area. You can see the blue arrow that's pointing to the general area. And this was categorized as a level 3, as a more hazardous area to live. Redlining was done by the Homeowners Loan Corporation as part of the New Deals program that was to give assurance that properties, wouldn't be foreclosed on. But in the end, what it did is really put into writing and mapping institutionalized racism of saying what were safe neighborhoods and what were not safe neighborhoods. And so this was an area that was not deemed as safe. It was deemed as a level 3 neighborhood. And through, strong civil rights movements, there were anti-discrimination lawsuits for housing and school desegregation, as well as state laws that came into play. And by the 1950s and 60s, the area known as either North City Park or later Skyland started to see the racial character evolve as Black families began moving into this neighborhood. And the next slide, please. And so Nora and Frank Harris were one of the first Black families to purchase lots here. They put together what is the largest lot along the golf course. It's on a corner property, and they hired one of the most prominent Denver architects who does custom work did custom work, and hired a very well-regarded builder as well, who often worked with William Borman. And so their purchase of this property as one of the earliest Black families to do that represents a pattern of change in the neighborhood and reflects the evolution of the area, and also shows the prominence of the family in being able to purchase such a large and put together so many lots, and hire such high quality architects within it. Also demonstrates the prominence of both Nora and Frank Harris, and then also Dorothy and Charles Cousins, and being able to purchase that in 1966. So staff finds that this property is significant under criterion J as well. So the Landmark Preservation Ordinance says in addition to also meeting the criteria, at least 3 out of 10, they also have to retain integrity. So there are 7 aspects of integrity, but in the end, when you're talking to people, the way I describe it is, would prior residents recognize the property today? And if you move to the next slide, overall, this property maintains excellent integrity. It's in its original location. It's still located directly across the street from the golf course, maintaining good setting with still other residential properties next to it and along it. And then, as you can see, the design, materials, and workmanship are really excellent. There's virtually no changes to the exterior of the building. And while the Landmark Preservation Commission, we don't have purview over landscaping, the landscaping also retains good integrity, with really only 2 changes, with the death of a tree and the death of the rose bushes. So staff believes that it has excellent integrity. You also should consider the historic context. This is an exceptionally well done designation application. It has really good historic context. The details on the development of the neighborhood, the history of the owners and their families, and then the background on the architects and the builders really strongly supports the criteria. So this is a really exceptional example of a historic context that supports the criteria for designation. And then finally, the period of significance, or the time period with which the property is important. It begins in 1958 with the construction date of the property, and then it ends in 1996, which is ends at the 30-year mark because the families have continuously owned it. It was chosen just to end at 30 years before today. So Landmark staff finds that the property is over 30 years of age, that the application meets at least 3 criteria, that it retains integrity, and that you all consider the historic context. And so next slide, Landmark staff is recommending approval for you to forward this to City Council. And I am happy to answer any questions now or later.
Great presentation. I always appreciate the education that you provide. My question is about the scope. And I noticed that the boundary is the property line, right? And that's inclusive of 2 structures, the main house and then a 3-car garage. And I wondered what the thinking was behind including the 3-car garage, because as I look at the photo, it appears it's not of the same era as the house, in that while it's stacked bond brick, just like the house. It appears to be a jumbo brick, not a standard brick as used in the house, or even a lower profile brick as used in the house. And so I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
I was gonna say, I thought it was built at the same time, but I will actually have the author, who is Ron Sladek, who is also on, to confirm that. It was my understanding that it was constructed at the same time, but I want to make sure that the author speaks to that, as he's done more research on this. So that would be a question for him, and he can speak in the applicant time period.
As the building footprint, saw it, everything's the same as.
Basically, yeah, there's virtually no changes to it.
I have a quick question. The property outline, the white dotted line there, is there any right-of-way concerns being right up against the sidewalk on 26th Avenue there that are going to be in conflict in the future that you're aware of?
No, we do a couple of different things. So anytime a designation application comes in, we verify that the legal description matches what it is. We send it to the city surveyor. So this is based on a legal description that the city surveyor has slightly updated from what was initially submitted. And it's always, we historically designate the parcels that are historically associated with the property. So this is something that we do on a fairly regular basis. And in fact, for all of our historic districts, the boundary goes to the midline of the street on any of the edges of our historic district. So this is something that is pretty regularly done for our districts and individual landmarks.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Kara. Okay, next we will have the applicant.
So Jay from Historic Denver is also going to join the applicant.
Good afternoon, everyone. I may be able to answer your question about the detached three-car garage. Mr. Harris was a landscape architect, and my understanding is he stored his equipment in those three-car garages, and which he had quite a bit of, and it was built at the same time as the house. I don't want to talk for a long time. I think that the document that Mr. Sladek drafted is pretty complete. I'll only add that it's a pleasure for me to be here. I hope that you will favorably consider this house. It is uniquely well built, and I'm stepping a little bit outside my area of expertise in saying that the house is well built, because I'm actually a physician, but I know a healthy patient when I see one. And in the process of preparing for this meeting, I drove all around Denver to different neighborhoods that were comparable. And I've seen some of Borman's other work. I've seen some of the contractors' other work. And I would say that this is second to none. And I'd be delighted if it's designated, because I think it holds historic, cultural, and architectural value for the city. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Historic Denver, we're very proud to support this landmark designation of the Harris Cousins House at 3535 East 26th Avenue, Parkway. This remarkable 1958 ranch-style residence embodies some of the most significant and under-recognized stories in Denver's history, stories of excellence, resilience, and community leadership in the face of systemic barriers. Historic Denver has been involved in this designation effort since 2024, when we connected Dr. Renee with historian Ron Sladek, and who researched and prepared the nomination. The application was submitted to the city last year, and we've been proud to help shepherd this effort forward alongside Dr. Renee and Ron every step of the way. I also wanted to point out Dr. Renee herself was honored by Historic Denver in 2022 with an Ann Love Award, recognizing her deep commitment to preserving the history, culture, and architecture of Denver, a commitment she has continued to demonstrate through her dedication to seeing her family's home recognized for its profound significance to the city. So the Harris Cousins House tells the story of two pioneering African-American families who helped shape Denver's cultural, civic, and architectural landscape. We believe this designation is long overdue, and we look forward to seeing the Landmark Preservation Commission recognize the Harris Cousins House as an individual Denver landmark.
Ron, do you have anything to add?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you for getting me into the meeting. I appreciate it. I was starting to get worried I wasn't going to get a chance to speak. I just have a few quick thank yous that I'd like to offer, given that I have a moment. I want to thank Kara for her work with processing and reviewing the nomination and all. Also the LPC. I've served as for 7 years as the chair of the LPC in Fort Collins, also on the Colorado State Historic Preservation Review Board for 6 years. I understand the work that goes into being a commission member, both in terms of reviewing nominations and all of the other work you do. And I just want to thank you all for taking the time to review this nomination and consider it today for approval. I figured out this is right around my 80th nomination that I've written over the years. And so I'm looking forward to getting a thumbs up on this one. I'd love to see this property nominated. Jay, thank you so much for Historic Denver's support as well. And then finally to Dr. Renee Cousins King, who has been an absolute pleasure to work with. I feel very honored to have had an opportunity to work with her and get to understand her family's legacy in the community. It is absolutely remarkable to me. And it just makes my heart very warm to have had a chance to work with Renee and celebrate her family's legacy through this nomination. So happy to answer any questions, and we look forward to a positive vote from you all. Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have any questions?
I get everyone to state their name and address for the record.
Yes.
I don't know if you could.
I can go first, I apologize. Jay Homestead, 1420 Ogden Street, Denver, Colorado, 80218.
You wanna know where I live?
Fortunately, it needs to be stated.
Dr. Renee Cousins King, 751 South Oneida Street, Denver, 80224.
And then Ron.
Well, I was born and grew up in Denver, but I'm a resident of Fort Collins. I don't know if you need an address, but that's where I live today.
Yes, please.
An address?
Yes, please.
4122 Stonegate Court in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I just want to congratulate you on the thoroughness of the research and the story you told.
I give Ron credit for that.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now this is the portion where we will be accepting public comment regarding the landmark application. So we'll start with the folks in the room and then move to those joining us virtually. For those joining us via Zoom who would like to speak, click the hand raise button in Zoom, dial *9 on your keypad to raise your hand if joining by phone. And if you have any difficulty, you can email landmark@denvergov.org with your name and phone number, and you guys will be able to get that sorted. When speaking, please provide your name and also provide your address, as Brittany had just reminded us. And then
for this portion, for the public hearing, please also clearly state your position on the proposal if you are in support of it or if you are not in support of it. And then
if you represent an organization, or if you hold an interest in the property.
and then also please state the organization or person you represent, whether the speaker is an owner or holder of some interest in the property or represents such owner or holder. Each person will have 3 minutes to provide comment to the commission, and comments and questions should not be directed to the applicant. So with that, is there anyone in the room who would like to provide public comment?
Okay, I think I got it timing
Yes.
right.
Right now. Sorry, it's so confusing.
I came in late, so she's telling me that you're the public hearing is starting. Good afternoon. My name is
Sorry,
Haynes.
hold on, we're just gonna start your timer.
Okay.
Okay.
My name is Happy Haynes. I live at 2982 Glencoe Street in Denver. I don't have an interest in the property and I'm just representing myself. I was a long-term resident, grew up in the neighborhood, just a couple of blocks from the Cousins' home. And I don't know anything about the architecture, although I will say the ranch style. As a kid, we remember that the only place in Denver you saw those houses was out South Denver over by the Welsher golf course. And it was to have, so I want to speak to the historic nature of Black African Americans moving into the neighborhood and establishing such incredible landmarks. It was sort of unheard of even after people began to move into the neighborhood to have African American families on that historic parkway right across the street from the golf course. That was really significant. And the Cousins were, as has been stated, really pillars, what we would consider pillars in the neighborhood. I don't know how Mr. Cousins got his nickname brother, but I'll venture one guess, and that is he was always supporting families and helping them get access to housing, helping business people in the neighborhood. As was stated, I was one of the OWL debutantes. So he was one of those, again, leaders, pillars in the neighborhood who made sure that young women like me growing up in that neighborhood could see success and could emulate and see the models for being involved in a community, being civic leaders, and being successful in business. If you could landmark people, Mr. Cousins would be a landmark. His presence, not only through the businesses that he ran, but just as an individual who was so accessible in the community. When we were very, very young, we thought he owned the golf course because we walked, all of us who lived in that neighborhood walked across that golf course and parked to school every day. And he would come out and tell us how to behave when we were on the golf course. But it was really a pleasure to grow up. That was a neighborhood where the people like Mr. Cousins raised all of us. So I feel like I'm part of the family, and Renee's like a sister who, we were raised by the incredible people like the Cousins. And one last thing on the Harris landscape. He was ahead of his time. If you look at that landscape now, and we're all rushing to make our landscapes like that because he got it about the landscape and the environment in Denver years and years and years before all the rest of us have finally figured it out. And so I just want to say enthusiastic support for this application.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Victoria Scott Haynes. I am not related to Happy. I grew up with them. I live at 2636 Madison, which is right behind Dr. Cousins' property. I am for this, as well as I will ditto everything that Happy said. The history, and I live in my childhood house. You don't hear that quite often. And so the integrity means a lot to me. I go down that alley every day and just, I love seeing that house as well as the three-car garage. I remember Mr. Cousins with his golf cart would take it out of that three-car garage and drive it over to the golf course. And that is history that I want to give back to my girls who will take over my house once I pass away. But that's history as well as the integrity and the design. You don't find that you can look across. If you go to the golf course now and sit there and look, that house stands out because it's one of the original. If you look now, you'll see the houses popping tops, not being, you know, as the good brick as you see now. So I hope that you consider this, and I'm for it, and I just love Renee and her family. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Hayden. I reside at 2418 Champas Street in the Curtis Park Five Points neighborhood, and I would like to urge your support of this application. I work with a group of volunteers, volunteer gardeners that take care of the gardens on Cousins Plaza in the Five Points neighborhood, and I think this is just speaking to the influence that the Charles Cousins and the Cousins family have had on the Five Points community. Their work and their name is ever present, and they have had a major impact on Denver and in our Five Points neighborhood in particular. And then for the house specifically, driving down or biking down 26th, I think it's really imperative that this home be landmarked because it's absolutely in danger. After the current owners were to sell it, you can absolutely see the homes along 26 one by one being pop-topped or the lots being divided and new houses being built because it's such a prime location on 26 with that view of the golf course and the city, that if you don't preserve it, it's a very good chance that it could no longer be in its current form in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else here in person? Yeah, go ahead.
John Deffinmore, Historic Denver, 1420 Ogden Street. I think everything that's needed to be said has already been said, so I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to thank Dr. Renee Cousins-King for establishing contact with Historic Denver coming up for 2 years ago. We had several email correspondences, and then I was invited to visit one of the most special, beautiful, authentic mid-century buildings I've ever been in. And so it's just wonderful to be at this point now, coming up for 2 years later. And also concurring with what the previous speaker said, the building immediately opposite this structure was demolished coming up for 18 months ago now. There was a very uncomfortable owner-opposed designation process, which never got to you, but it did create a lot of ill will and upset, as those processes tend to. This is a great example of a proactive process with the building being put forward for designation by its owner before it's in danger, which is precisely how the process should work. So just thank you to the applicant and to you all for your consideration. I hope you approve it today.
Okay, if that's all the comments in the room, we'll move to Zoom. Anyone there would like to make a comment?
So you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hey, there I am. Everything's been, in addition to all the wonderful things that's been said, I am so glad Renee is doing this. That section of the avenue was all owned by affluent Blacks. And it was all cohesive and they were beautiful, all beautiful homes of their time. And that really said that. And now it's being scraped by affluent whites. And I'm really glad that she's doing this because those homes are beautiful and especially hers. So that's all I want to say. And I'm glad. Thank you, Renee.
Can you state your address?
Oh, yeah. 1037 29th Street, Denver.
Thank you. Okay, so it seems those are all the commenters on Zoom. So with that, we are going to close the public hearing portion and the commission will move to deliberation and voting. So commissioners, what are our thoughts? Erica, you want to open it up?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the applicant for bringing this forward. I think this is really important property to have designated in Denver. I think it has been stated, Ron did an amazing job on the application, and it gives the whole context of not just the architecture, which is, you know, beautiful unto itself, but the rest of the history, why it's there, the people who made it happen, and who continue to make it an important place today. I will say I was particularly excited to see Frank Harris's name because I happened to have recently done research on golf courses and racial segregation, and noted that he was the designer for Park Hill Golf Club, which of course was famously segregated until it was forced to unsegregate itself in the 60s. So I guess I'd just like to make a comment. It seems like that might be something worthwhile to have in the application, just to note that while the golf club relied on Frank Harris's expertise, they of course were not open to him enjoying their facilities. So very, very minor, but I support this application wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think I've already indicated my support, but I'll do so again.
Yeah, I agree. Knowing that we also have the Henderson House, that's a neighboring property that's designated. It's really wonderful to see that we have another property that's going to be highlighted. Obviously, this is a neighborhood where the history really hasn't had the chance to shine and really be shared as much with the public as it should be. So it's really wonderful to see this project be brought to light, and I fully support it. So thank you so much for doing the work to share it. It obviously takes time, and you guys have had really, it seems that you've had really great partners to help get it there.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just say that while the applicant's attestation to the age of the garage helps, by looking at it, it doesn't appear as though, even though it might have been done under the time of the original ownership of the house and done to match to the best of their ability, the materials aren't of the same era. It doesn't appear to be. So, but if my peers or my colleagues here believe it's important to include that, I'm fine for including it. But
I would like to point out, you know, if that was part of Harris's like business of having some of his equipment there, regardless of whether it was Borman's original design, there's also the period of significance, which is established from 1958 to 1996, which should encompass, you know, changes and development of the property within that time. So I think I'm not sure if you're suggesting it should be excluded from the boundary. But
well, I just I'm saying I'm fine with it if everybody else is fine with it being included. I just think that it should be noted that it's not as architecturally pure as the house itself. And that's not uncommon for a garage, but it's just doesn't appear to me as though the original architect had it in. That's all.
So to perhaps provide clarification that that structure was built at a different time, or like you said, the materiality.
Yeah, or you know, so it's something that the owner, I mean, if it was or a future owner had an interest in removing it, I mean, they're not gonna be able to do it after this passes.
Yeah, and the detached garage was something that caught my attention as well. But I think knowing that the landscape is a part of this designation and part of the application, I think in my mind, if like you're saying, if someone were to want to remove the garage in the future and the boundary lines were different, or if we had a caveat in the application, I think in my mind it goes to, okay, if something were to shift with the garage, how does that impact the landscape? Because the landscape is a contributing factor.
Oh, we don't have purview over the landscape.
Right.
Right. You know, there's another property on Colorado where the historic garage, it's an individual landmark, and the historic garage we approved it for demolition. So I don't think it necessarily precludes it absolutely from not being able to happen. But I also think, again, it's contributing to the importance, or at least the history of this property. Because it was clearly built, even if not, you know, at the exact year of the house, it was built during the period of significance, if not, you know, close to the house. And again, was kind of part of the original owner's use of the property. So I
think that's well said.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Chris, do you have anything to add?
No, I would just agree though that it should be, we should understand and the application should confirm, you know, if the garage or when it was built, if they could find that out, right? I do think that's important information. I think that it should be included in the overall designation, but I do think it should be understood exactly what it is, when it was built, you know, as best to the ability we can. I think that's important information.
So would someone like to make a motion?
Put the suggested motion.
I move to recommend approval and forward to City Council the landmark designation of the Harris Cousins House, application 2026 L-002, based on the landmark ordinance criteria B, C, D, and J, citing as findings of fact for this recommendation, the application form, public testimony, and the staff report.
Thank you, Emily. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Erica. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? The motion passes. Another learned sound carries through to the speaker. Computer.
Congratulations.
Just a quick reminder for everyone to speak up for everyone online. We've had a request.
So moving to our next agenda item, design review. These are items that require individual consideration by the commission and are reviewed and discussed separately before a motion and vote is taken. We will announce the design review agenda by address. So here we have 2026 COA 462 612 North Pearl Street, East 7th Avenue. And we have 2026 COA 286 978 32nd Street, Curtis Park G. Do any commissioners have ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest with either of the stated projects?
Oh, yes, I did serve on the RNO. And I live across the street on 31st and Arapahoe. But yeah, if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to stay on
For the Curtis Park.
for the Curtis Park. Yep.
Thank you. We'd like to have you say. And with that, we'll take it over to staff.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrew Abbey. Today I'm presenting 612 North Pearl Street. Next slide for me. So today's proposal is for a new two-story accessory structure at the rear of the property just mentioned. The ground floor is primarily garage space, while the second floor contains a two-bedroom ADU. The structure is rectilinear in plan, sized to function as a secondary building rather than compete with the historic home. Key features include a central gable roof, shed dormers, aluminum-clad wood windows, fiber cement lap siding and trim, two garage doors facing the alley, exterior stair access to the upper unit, a rear balcony, 9 solar panels on the south-facing roof slope, and limited new cedar privacy fencing. Slide. Next slide, sorry. Wait, previous slide, sorry, I messed up. So the property sits within the East 7th Avenue Historic District, where detached accessory structures already form part of the established development pattern. Staff specifically notes that garages and increasingly ADUs contribute to that pattern. That matters because the project is not introducing a fundamentally new type of building to the district. Instead, it is continuing a recognizable historic arrangement, primary residence in front, secondary structure at the rear, access from the alley. Also worth noting, the required R&O review period closed with no comments received by staff. Next slide. So this slide provides the roadmap for the rest of the presentation. Each of these guidelines were marked yes in the staff report as being met by the proposal. Together they form the basis for staff's recommendation of approval. Next slide. Staff found that the proposed solar panels are appropriately located on the south-facing roof, which is opposite of what the drawing is showing because the drawing is labeled from, but yes, south is that way in this. Let's see. So appropriately located on the south-facing roof of the new rear accessory structure, which minimizes visibility and avoids impacts to the primary historic residence. Also, no electrical equipment will be installed where it is visible from the public right-of-way. Next slide. So the ADU and garage follow the established pattern for secondary structures in the district. It is placed at the rear of the lot, faces the alley, and uses the alley for garage access. That reinforces the historic rhythm of the block, minimizes impacts on the public streetscape. The proposal is successful in terms of these guidelines because it behaves like an accessory structure should behave within a historic district rather than drawing attention to itself as a competing front-facing building. Next slide. So staff concluded that the building's massing and form are compatible with the surrounding context and remain subordinate to the primary house. This is important because compatibility does not require imitation, but it does require the new structure to respect the hierarchy of the site. The material palette also supports that conclusion. The James Hardy smooth lap siding with a 4-inch exposure and matching trim is specifically identified by staff as consistent with contemporary structures and new additions in the district. The materials are simple, controlled, and visually compatible rather than overly expressive or eclectic. Next slide. So the fencing is a relatively minor part of the application, but staff still found it consistent with the guidelines for rear yard fences because it is limited in scope, located at the rear, and used for privacy rather than creating a prominent streetscape feature. Stepping back, the project is properly sited, compatible in form, and restrained in materials. For that reason, Landmark staff concludes the proposed 2-story ADU garage structure meets the guidelines presented today and recommends approval. Now on the next slide. I forgot to take the with conditions out, so ignore that. There are no conditions. Landmark staff's recommending approval today.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
Thank you.
All right, we are ready for the applicant.
name's Matthew Crick. My business is at 759 Lottie Street. Can we cycle back to it's Matthew Crick, so okay, by the way. Go back to the first slide. First.
If you want the renderings.
Yeah, the renderings, I'll start there. Great. So this lot is actually a little bit strange. It has it's about 30 feet deep in the foot wide back, and then the property line jogs down to the south, and it gets a little bit wider at the front. Made for some interesting interpretation of the zoning code to say, is this project, would it be allowed to have more frontage, because is the property line is supposed to be measured from the width, and if the width is over 40 feet, then you're allowed to have more frontage, but and more square footage allowed for the entire site. But we chose more the lesser of those. So we made this actually a smaller project, and I think it still fits really well into the back of the property. It's a pretty standard gable roof, and it's oriented east-west directions. We used a lot. We utilized the dormers a lot to give a little more height. The bulk plane, because it's on a 25-foot wide lot, is pretty constrictive. So we maxed out what we could through zoning with the dormers, and to allow more room in the living spaces on the north and south sides. Could you go to the next slide? So here, but this is where that jog in the property line starts. And because the jog was here, we placed the stairs coming up from this side and around. We just had a little more space on that south side to allow for the entry into that area. And our client's going to be moving into this with his daughter, and they kind of want to downsize into this space. They're really looking forward to having a nice new ADU for them to live in. And there's been some, and Andrew did a great point talking about all this. I have a hard time adding to that. But there was one contention with the this transit window up here. That is a window that's, there's the lower cabinets for the kitchen, and there's upper cabinets for the kitchen, and then there's a small area in between that we put a nice transit window that'll reflect light onto the countertops there. And you know, we were thinking about putting a bigger window there, but that really took away from a lot of the cabinets that we could hang on that wall. But we had to have a window there per zoning for the dormer rules. So that's the window we ended up landing on. And if you can go back one slide to the renderings, you'll see here there's a garage right up against this property line, and it makes it nearly impossible to see that window anyway. So it's has very little visibility from the street or from the right of way. And we actually did comparative renderings from the street of Pearl, and just with how tight this neighborhood is, you really don't get any visibility as it is right now to see this ADU from the front right of way. If you were to cut down one of his trees, you would get a glimpse of it from the crack on the north side of the building. Yeah, I think that's one clarification I would have though too, is the approximate height says 24.5. We're not proposing to go above the 24-foot height limit. I think that was just a scaling issue, but on our drawings, you'll see it says height limit 123. The base plane is down here, 1 foot below level 100. So we're planning to go up against 124. So there's a graphical issue there, some scaling. Yeah, I got that. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, so commission, what are our thoughts? What do you think?
I think it clearly meets the design guidelines, and I'm in support of approving.
That's the question, Andrew. Is it not on consent specifically because of concerns about the window?
Yeah, and I addressed that in the staff report, but I didn't want that, I guess, to be the focus of the thing.
Because
Make it
curiosity procedurally.
I guess I also, just speaking to that, I found that window to be pretty unobtrusive, unusual for the patterning, but I think the rest of the windows meet the guidelines, and I think it's I don't have a problem with it.
Based on sightlines, I'm good. I was just curiosity.
Anyone else?
I support it as well.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve application number 2026-COA-462 for the new ADU at 612 North Pearl Street as per design guidelines 2.8.3, 2.8.4, 4.3.10, 4.3.11, 4.3.12, 4.6.1, and 5.3.4 and 2.39. Presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Erica. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you, Emily.
Do you have any?
Oh, yeah, friendly amendment, disregard the 2.
You can't make the amendment.
Never mind.
What do we need to make an amendment on?
Removing the 2.39, that was an
Okay.
old guideline.
Okay. I would like to remove reference to design guideline 2.39, and I approve that.
I'll accept it.
Accept it as well, yeah.
Okay. So moving on to the vote, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes. Okay, so moving on to 978 32nd Street, Historic District, Curtis Park G.
Okay, thanks, guys. So this new application is for a new pool house and 2 new pools at Mestizo Curtis Park near the corner of Champa Street and 32nd Street. The applicant, Denver Parks and Recreation, is approved to demolish the existing 1951 bathhouse and pool. You can see here at 3181 Champa Street. This demolition was originally approved at the August 5th, 2025 meeting, LPC meeting, contingent on a replacement plan. The previous phase 1 submittal was denied at that August 5th meeting, so this is a new revised phase 1 submittal before you today that reflects changes to the design that were desired by the commission and by the registered neighborhood organization, Curtis Park Neighbors, who the applicant has been working with since then. Went off, right?
Going off.
Oh, it's currently going off, okay.
See what it's saying.
Construction.
You can't blame me this time.
Had it got during the meeting.
To give us a warning beforehand if they're gonna test.
Saying emergency, but I think we'll.
Yeah.
So I would suggest everyone follow CPD's location, wherever that is. Do you all know where you go?
Yeah.
We have to adjourn.
alarm. So we are going to be pausing the meeting, I suppose. And we will be returning when we can.
Okay. I don't know where Chris went, but.
Chris, we're back, if you're there.
You evacuated.
I'm here.
You can reconvene.
All right, we are ready to reconvene. Crystal, round two.
I'll just start over for everyone. So this new application is for a new pool house and 2 pools at the Mestizo Curtis Park, near the corner of Champa Street and 32nd Street. The applicant is Denver Parks and Recreation, and they are approved to demolish the existing 1951 bathhouse and pool at 3181 Champa Street, as seen here on the screen. This demolition was approved on August 5th, 2025, contingent on a replacement plan. The previous phase 1 submittal was denied at that August 5th meeting, so this is a new revised phase 1 submittal before you today that reflects changes to the design that were desired by the commission and the registered neighborhood organization Curtis Park Neighbors, who the applicant has been working with since then. Next slide. So design guideline 4.2.1 states to respect established building locations, lot coverage, and open space patterns when locating a new building. Here you can see the studies the applicant did to show how the new pool house will relate to the surrounding historic context. On the far right is the ground plan comparison the applicant submitted showing the varied setbacks that exist around the park location, as well as the varied width of structures that face the park. The new pool house structure and pool area are compatible with the historic district, and the new location of the structure will face the street like other residential and commercial structures in the district, and will allow the new pool areas to face into the park. The pool house will be set back approximately 35 to 36 feet from the street, and although it is a long 202-foot building, the applicant has broken it into modules to better relate to the surrounding lot context, as seen at the bottom and middle of the screen. Next slide. So here are the streetscape drawings comparing the new pool house to historic structures in the surrounding context. Design guideline 4.2.3 states to design a building to include typical features and rhythms of historic buildings in the surrounding context and block using similar proportions and dimensions. Landmark staff finds that the proposed structure does partially meet this, as the new civic pool house structure and pool areas do include typical features and rhythms of historic buildings in the surrounding context. The structure is a 1-story tall building ranging from 15 foot 4 inches tall at the smaller modules to 17 feet 4 inches tall at the fully enclosed modules, and having a maximum height of 20 feet 8 inches at that main porch entry. The entry location facing the street does fit the surrounding context. Additionally, the shadow window proportions also match the height and size of windows typically found in the district and on Italianate structures within this context. However, Landmark staff expressed some concern, in particular for the 20-foot 8-inch height or 2-story height at the main entrance to the pool area. Looking at the application page 29, which is shown here on the screen, this shows building heights within the district, and the illustrations indicate that a ridge height of most 1-story structures does not exceed 16 to 17 feet in height. However, the plate height of these buildings is closer to 10 feet. The flat roof 2-story structures in the district range just above 20 feet. And as this building is a 1-story structure, Landmark staff believe that that 20-foot 8-inch entry height may be a bit too tall and not relate well to the context. Landmark staff is recommending a minor restudy of the height, particularly of the main entrance for the phase 2 submittal, just to be more pedestrian scaled and better relate to that context. Next slide. So here you can see the overall mass and form of the proposed structure, as well as the roof form. Design guideline 4.2.4 states to design the height, mass, and form of a new building to be compatible with the historic context. And guideline 4.2.6 says to use a roof form that is compatible with the historic context. So the new pool house building will be designed within the typical rate of boxy building forms with flat roofs that are commonly found within the Curtis Park Historic District. The new building will be at the same grade as others found in the context. The floor-to-floor heights on most modules are somewhat tall compared to those found in the context. However, the applicant has stated that a civic stature is important for this building. In addition, there is a suggestion that some mechanical equipment will be located within the structure rather than on the roof, so that could also be a visual benefit and a reason for the height. As stated earlier, a 10-foot floor-to-floor height might be viewed as more typical of the neighborhood. This building, though one story in function, is designed at a scale that's more 1.5 to 2 stories in height. So Landmark staff did recommend that the height be reduced, for instance, not by creating such a dramatic expression of volume at the entry gate, or still by achieving that articulation but reducing the overall height of the whole design slightly by some reasonable increment that mitigates that scale concern. In general, staff does find that the design of the structure successfully uses a base, middle, and top expression with shadow windows and a cornice that is typically found on Italianate structures within the district. And as you can see here, that overall structure is broken into 25 to 50-foot modules with shifts in wall plane that add to the building's articulation and break it up overall along that 202-foot length. Next slide. So here on the left, you can see more detail about the proposed shadow windows as well as the new cornice. Design guideline 4.2.8 says to design windows, doors, and other features to be compatible with the historic contributing primary structures and the historic context. The new pool house structure does appear to have door sizes that match others found in the district, though it's unclear from the application how those sizes relate. New structure has a limited number of windows that are strictly for allowing visitors into the pool area for use and for safety reasons at the lifeguard station and break room, and those are located on the interior or rear of the structure facing into the park. No other windows are proposed on the structure, and as this is a pool house with lockers and is a changing facility, windows were purposely omitted from the design as they are not needed and can be easily broken, which can cause safety issues for the pool. However, the applicant has now added the shadow windows as seen here with proportions that do match the height and size of windows typically found in the district and within the context. The placement of the shadow windows on the front and side elevations doesn't currently appear to be following any type of pattern or rhythm in relation to window placements on historic structures in the district and seemed a bit arbitrary to staff. So staff was just recommending to restudy the placements of these shadow windows for the phase 2 submittal to better show how the placements relate to Italianate structures in the historic context more clearly. Headers and sills are also common, and the addition of these or doing one or the other could also help the shadow windows better relate to the context. Design guideline 4.4.1 states to establish a sense of human scale in the building design. Simple building features, including these shadow window articulations and a cornice at the flat roof, have been added to better fit with the context. And although staff believes these design elements fit the Italianate style of this design and are an appropriate addition to the structure, staff believes these features could be further improved for the phase 2 submittal to better relate to Italianate structures found in the historic context. As most windows do typically have headers and sills, and cornice details do not typically include horizontal louvers, which staff is concerned makes the cornice appear chunky and heavy and does not relate well to other cornices found in the district on Italianate structures and is not simplified. Staff understands louvers and vents are necessary for the building due to the use and the amount of mechanical equipment that will be here. However, Landmark staff believes louvers could be better incorporated into the design in other areas than the cornice line of the building. They could be incorporated into the shadow window areas or other locations above doors on the rear facade. Next slide. So here's more detail of the proposed main entrance for the new facility. Landmark staff, again, just expressed some concerns over the overall height of 20 foot 8 inches or 2 stories at that main entrance to the pool area. Building heights within the district are typically lower for one-story structures. However, the plate height of these buildings is closer to 10, and this is much taller. The flat roof two-story structures in the district typically range above 20, so that was our concern there. We just felt it didn't relate well. Staff recommends a minor restudy of the height, particularly of this main entrance, to be more pedestrian scaled. Additionally, staff suggests that the front entrance canopy proportions and asymmetrical placement do not relate well to the surrounding historic context and other Italianate porches found in the historic district, so should be included for reconsideration of this element of the design. So as you can see here at the center of the application on this page, 2565 Champa Street, for instance, is an included porch example, which is a modern infill structure, and that was included as an inspiration for this canopy design. So staff does not believe it relates well to the historic Italianate structures in the district. And then on the right, you can just see examples of Italianate structures the applicant included in the in the application for reference. Next slide. So design guideline 4.4.3 says to maintain that overall mass and scale pattern as viewed from the street. These floor-to-floor heights are tall compared to the surrounding context. However, vertical articulations have been incorporated through shadow vertical window articulations, and they do take those proportions from windows in the district. The horizontal articulation is located at the base and the top, and that with that new cornice, and so the structure does have a clear base, middle, and top. Here also you can see some potential mural locations for new art. The existing pool house in Mestizo Curtis Park features painted murals by local artist Manuel Martinez, which hold cultural significance to the park and the community. Those existing murals will be destroyed with the demolition of the existing pool house. So Denver Parks and Recreation, in conjunction with Denver Arts and Venues, has been working with Emmanuel Martinez to coordinate new murals on this new pool house so that new art that has meaning to the community will exist in the future. This work is continuing through a separate process with Denver Arts and Venues. While this phase 1 application shows potential mural locations in this packet, nothing with the new art or murals has been finalized at this time. Next slide. So onto the technical drawings. Here is the new proposed site plan for the pool house and the pools. Design guideline 4.4.2 states to maintain typical spacing patterns created by the repetition of historic building widths along the street. The new pool house will be a long 202-foot one-story structure set in the park, but will face the street as other structures in the district and has the massing broken up into those 25 to 50-foot modules with changes in wall plane by both stepping back and stepping forward in different modules, which mimics typical lot widths found in the district. Next slide. And then here's the top. At the top is that proposed roof plan for the structure, the open trellis area being that main entrance to the pool area. And then below at the bottom is the new proposed floor plan. Next slide. And then at the top here are intent statements for new structures, which Landmark has found that this phase 1 submittal meets. Below those, you can see the front elevation for the new structure facing at the center, facing the street. And then at the bottom is the rear elevation that will face towards the pools. Next slide. And I've included here at the top the new proposed front facade of the pool house with the previous submittal at the bottom, just for reference to see how the design has changed in response to the commission's comments and that of the neighborhood since last August. I'd like to point out that the previous iteration had a maximum height of 17 feet 6 inches at its highest point and tapered down at either end to 10 feet 6 inches. So the previous design was overall lower in height compared to the submittal before you today in relation to the RNO's comments at the beginning of the meeting today. The current iteration again ranges from that 15 feet 4 inches to 17 feet 4 inches at the majority of the building, with the highest point at that 20 foot 8 inches at the main entry. Next slide. So the new pool house structure is compatible with the surrounding historic context in terms of mass and form. It is one story. It is broken up into 25 to 50 foot modules. It does relate to the existing lot patterns found in the district. The new structure has a simple rectangular massing design and incorporates gestures to an Italianate style that relates to the context. And although staff is supportive of the overall design and is recommending approval, Landmark staff believes that minor adjustments to height may be needed to connect to the scale of the neighborhood better. And in addition, the shadow window placements and lack of window headers and or sills and the cornice detailing, as well as that front entry porch elements could be improved or adjusted for phase 2 to better fit with the character of the district. So we are recommending approval with the following conditions you see before you here.
Thank you, Crystal. Does anyone have questions for staff?
When you're referring to the asymmetrical placement of the porch canopy, are you talking about just within the volume that it's applied to? Or the volume itself, the entrance volume?
Porch canopy that's at the 14-foot height, yeah. How that's more symmetrical in relation to that overall module.
Right, okay.
Okay, thank you. We are ready for the applicant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have fancy technology anymore, like Adobe. Why would we? Ready when you are.
Good afternoon. My name is Rafael Chavez, 1670 Broadway, Denver, Colorado, 80202.
Andy Duckett Monkey with CSHQA, 2696 South Colorado Boulevard, Suite 501.
Emily Ziegler, Denver Parks and Recreation, 101 West Colfax Avenue. I just wanted to say a few words at the beginning. I wanted to thank staff and the commission for taking time to review this application. As Crystal said, this is the second time we have been here for mass form and context for this project. Last August, we heard that there were some revisions that were needed specifically related to the roof line and other components of the design. Since that time, we have engaged very significantly with different groups to look at the design of the entire project, not just the pool house. We have engaged with the councilman's office, steering committees, the public, and most notably, we've had 3 separate meetings with the Mestizo Curtis RNO Design Review Committee. Based off of those conversations, we've made revisions, and I will let Andy and Raphael talk through the new plans.
Alrighty, I'm going to force everybody through a quick history lesson. Curtis Park Historic District is one of the older districts in the city of Denver. The period of significance of Curtis Park Historic Park ranges between 1870 to 1920. Next slide. Oh yeah, next slide. The park and pool site are bounded by Champa, Curtis, 32nd and 30th. The park construction began in 1905 with the original playground, and then later on, I believe by about 1910 came the additional walkways, open lawns, and gardens. The character-defining features of Curtis Park Historic District are based on a wide range of eclectic architectural styles, almost exclusively residential, with a limited number of commercial buildings. The Italianate structure are the most common buildings style found in the district. Italianate buildings typically feature low-hipped or flat roofs, boxy massing, tall, thin, single or paired windows, articulated stone bases, and a reserved cornice detailing. Many of the elements in our proposal are contemporary in nature, however, they're all derived from these Italianate details. Next slide, please. While the new pool building is not residential, it must meet public safety, accessibility, operational requirements, and fit within the district's historic character. The massing and proportions of the new building need to remain simple, contextually appropriate to the district. The new pool building follows the historic building patterns found in the district, taking suggestions from Curtis Park neighbors. The building mass is broken down into 25 and 50-foot modules, which we've talked about. The modules relate to the typical plot size development of the neighborhood, which is typically 25 feet wide by 125 feet deep. As you can see on this lot development from the Sanborn map in the early 30s. This is a key evolution from the previous design. Our intent is to break down the overall building mass into a pattern that is more contextual to the neighborhood as well as pedestrian oriented. Next slide, please. The Mestizo Curtis Park Pool project aims to construct a replacement public facility that better harmonizes with the surrounding diverse and historic community. Conceptually, the massive building will be broken down along the facade into pedestrian scale. The proposed building will follow the historic building patterns of the neighborhood, which you can see in this diagram. As we continue the design approach, our design team will continue our collaborative efforts with Curtis Park and with Denver Landmarks and further align the project with the Curtis Park Historic District and Denver Design Guidelines. And with that, I'll turn it over to Raphael.
As Andy mentioned, the design draws directly from the surrounding community by translating the neighborhood's lots, orientations, and parcel rhythm into the building's massings. Composed of a series of the 25-foot map modules that we mentioned, the building reflects the varied lot widths found in the context, breaking down the scale of what could otherwise read as a monolithic civic facility. This modular approach creates a collection of human-scale volumes that align with and subtly shift to echo adjacent lot patterns. As a result, the building maintains an appropriate neighborhood scale while remaining approachable, legible, and grounded in the character of the surrounding fabric. Next slide. The concept design began with BAB module strategy, using repetition and variation to establish order while avoiding a single continuous volume. With a long linear program, this approach allowed the massing to be intentionally broken into distinct yet programmatic related components. Vertical separation between the modules reinforces moments around the building, while purposeful facade recesses further differentiate each mass and introduce depth and shadow. Together, these moves reduce the perceived length and scale of the building, creating a more articulated human-scale composition that aligns with the project's broader contextual and design goals. Next slide. As the concept evolved, the focus shifted toward expressing the individual massings in a way that responded more directly to the surrounding context while establishing clear Italianate style hierarchy. This exploration led to defining the distinct base, middle, and top using proportion, material shifts, and articulation to reinforce each layer. The base anchors the building to the street and neighborhood scale. The middle unifies the primary programmatic masses, and the top provides a cornice approach that complements the massing's modules. Together, these strategies clarify the building's form, enhance its civic character, and strengthens relationship to contextual fabric. Next slide. The program is aligned with the BAB module strategy, ensuring that spaces correspond directly to the articulated massing. Each module houses a logical grouping of program elements, reinforcing the rhythm and hierarchy established in the overall concept. In plan, this organization is expressed through a consistent 2-foot facade recess between modules, creating a clear change in plane along the 200-foot long elevation. Next slide. The technical elevations currently in development illustrate a 2-foot vertical separation between massings, creating 2 cornice lines that align horizontally to maintain a consistent datum across the full facade. Now, the following 6 slides will address the feedback received in the Landmark staff report. Next slide. Feedback regarding window rhythm requested clarification on its relationship to the surrounding neighborhood. In response, precedent studies along nearby streetscapes identified a consistent Italianate pattern, which typically reads as an A-B pairing. Approximately 2/3 of a traditional Italianate front facade features vertically paired windows, while the remaining 1/3 is expressed in a single vertical stack. This proportional rhythm has been interpreted in the design to reinforce contextual alignment. Next slide. The project references the neighborhood's established A and B shadow window rhythm by translating the alternating paired and single vertical window arrangement across the entire facade. This approach reflects a proportional cadence found in the surrounding context while providing a cohesive and legible window pattern along the full massing. To further reinforce the rhythm, a glazed brick module is used to introduce relief within each facade and within the shadow window expression. The brick module defines the depth, seals, and headers of the shadow windows, adding texture, shadow, and material clarity while unifying the architectural language across the massing elements. Next slide. In collaboration with the RNO, 3 key opportunities were identified to celebrate arrival and entry throughout the site. These include a raised and articulated mass at the corner of Champlin 32nd, a clearly expressed and celebrated main entrance, and the integration of artwork to define the corner of Curtis and 32nd. Together, these strategies create multiple moments of emphasis around the building, helping to mark entry points, strengthen wayfinding, and enhance the building's presence within the neighborhood. Next slide. Feedback on the porch entry height noted that flat-roofed, 2-story structures within the district typically range just above 20 feet. In response, the team referenced relevant non-residential precedents included in the application, such as the Armory, to establish an appropriate district context. The Armory emphasized the main entry with a prominently raised mass reaching approximately 52 feet within its AB compositional rhythm. Similarly, this project celebrates its primary entrance through a modest 20'8" entry element, creating emphasis with only a 3'4" height increase above the lowest roof. The approach aligns the building type scale while reinforcing hierarchy and arrival in a restrained and contextual manner. Next slide. Feedback was received noting that asymmetrical porch placement was perceived as not relating well to the surrounding historic context and the more traditional porch arrangements found within the district. In response, the porch design does reflect the neighborhood's characteristic 1/3, 2/3 porch proportion by organizing the front door within an intentionally asymmetrical composition. Rather than centering the entry, the porch massing and opening are shifted to mirror the historic pattern found in the district. The proportional approach reinforces neighborhood character, clearly defines the main entrance, and adds depth and identity to the building while remaining familiar in contextual rhythms. Last slide. Feedback was received noting that cornice details in the district do not typically include horizontal louvers and expressed concern that such an approach could read as overly chunky or heavy. In response, the design does not incorporate horizontal louvers in the cornice level. Instead, the cornice is used as a unifying element to stitch up the building's multiple step modules by aligning equal height datums across separate massings, similar to the Posner Center located within our historic district. This consistent horizontal line reinforces cohesion while allowing the overall form to step and vary. At key vertical mass transitions, horizontal profile metal panels are introduced to strengthen and articulate the cornice expression, creating a clear, refined termination without added bulk. This strategy provides a visual continuity and definition while maintaining a lighter, more proportional appearance appropriate for the district context. And that is it. I'm
Right on
sorry
time.
for talking so fast, but that's a lot of context. So. That is it.
Does anyone have any questions for that?
So at the risk of kind of telling you to do it again, but because you were rushing so fast, could you just speak a little bit more about the louver cornice thing, what your response is to staff's concerns? Feel free to just summarize or kind of, you don't have to restate it all.
Yeah, so the intent is to have some horizontal continuity with the overall massing, using that cornice to tie the full length of that building together. But because we have the height variations on the massing, to create more of an emphasized cornice on the higher massings, we are emphasizing that cornice with this horizontal articulation that will tie back to the horizontal louver articulation that we will have on the building. We will have horizontal louvers on this based off of the mechanical pool equipment in that house, and not to just kind of let it stand on its own and kind of be this, feature that just kind of is foreign to the building. We're using some of that horizontal articulation and tying it into the cornice at the raised massings.
So it's being used as louvers in one section of the building and then being kind of applied as, sorry if I'm.
In like horizontal profile panels. We're not using like true louvers.
Right, but it's being applied to the rest of the building to kind of tie it all together.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the distinction is originally the application said louvers, and I think, which rightfully so, we latched onto it. The horizontal members that are meant to be a unifying element across the building, however, scrub out the term louver. We will have louvers because of pool equipment, but it's not in the cornice itself. It's just horizontal articulation.
Okay.
I have a quick question that ventilation is required for the mechanical pool room and chemicals and everything, right?
Correct, yes.
By code.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm just saying that, you know, they do need, I hate to keep on using louvers, but they do need ventilation, right?
The intent is to include the louvers within our shadow windows in that mat. So like on that very far corner, on that bottom right of the slide, like those back 2 or 3 windows based off of the mechanical requirements is intended to include the horizontal louver within that window. So it's contextually aligned with the rest of the mass.
Thanks for the clarification.
I have a question regarding the heights, since they've been brought up. So our understanding is for, that there's going to be mechanical in here, and so could you explain a little bit based on the staff's comments about, wanting to kind of do another study about the heights of the roof and of the roof lines? Could you speak to the feasibility of that? Like, what are some of the restrictions? Is that feasible to lower it, or is that really set to that height because you guys have I'm assuming MEP and you have structural beams, things that are really determining those heights?
I would say aside from the mechanical equipment that's required in the higher massing at the corner of Chapman 32nd, there's also been concerns brought up by DPR on accessibility to the roofs, bringing it down around 10 to 11 feet. It's scalable at that height.
And by scalable, you mean like climbing?
Yeah, climbing and getting on the roof. There's concerns with, you know, people getting sleeping and behind. We're trying to create low profiles to minimize any issues with that up there. So like even the lower canopy, that mid canopy height at being 14 feet, that's right around the sweet spot of where they wanted to be at from a non-scalable height. So that's kind of another perspective that we've been considering with these a little bit taller masses.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mission. What are our thoughts and comments?
I would just like to commend the applicant for going back to the drawing and coming back with something that I think is in line with the guidelines and certainly serves the community better than what we were presented with the first time. Given that, I support the project as it's designed, as I think it fits with the guidelines, and I don't feel the need personally to further condition that approval with the 3 numbered conditions as suggested by staff.
I think I would be in full support. I think the modules as they are do a great job of kind of breaking it up, but I would worry that starting to hack away at the height would kind of, I don't know, kind of make it look just too squat. I think in proportion to its length, it's at 200 feet or something. I think it has to have a little bit of height, and then the entrance being the entrance, being easily identifiable as the entrance, and feeling proportional and grand, or not even necessarily grand, but identifiable, for new people coming to the new pool, I think is appropriate. The windows, the shadow windows is coming off as arbitrary, I think is, I think that maybe there's a couple windows on the corner that are actually going to be used as some louver, so taking off that and then going 5 foot on center, I think would look much lazier
I agree, those syncopated windows, I didn't mention that, but I think that that's an elegant solution.
Yeah, and I think, you know, arbitrary in the context of art and architecture, I think is, I don't know. They lay out, you know, they're obviously not designed from the inside or the outside, because they're shadow windows, I'm full support.
And it seems that some of the concerns about the shadow windows, because I think the applicant did a good job of explaining the placement and what was driving that. So that we can better understand where that patterning, what was driving that patterning. And also understanding that it does relate to an actual functioning factor if it goes back to the mechanical system and then it's serving that purpose. But I think too, in phase 2 of materiality, we'll really see some of those concerns with the shadow windows. I think materiality will resolve some of those as well.
I agree with what has all been said. I also don't feel the need for the conditions. In response to the porch, I also agree with the applicant's response to that kind of asymmetry comment, because of it within the volume itself, it's asymmetrical, but we do see that applied to these residences in the Curtis Park district. So I don't, it doesn't strike me as being out of the context of the residents, the residential forms that we see. So yeah, I agree with Nick that I think this is incredibly improved and much more compatible with the district.
I'm in agreement. Would anyone like to make a motion?
And I do see that Sue has her hand up, so perhaps you want to remind the public about the comment process.
Yeah, Sue, we appreciate you and commentary. However, this is the portion of the meeting where we are not taking public comment that was earlier in the meeting. So we are going to proceed with our vote. Okay, yep.
Madam Chair, I move to approve application 2026-COA-286 for the new construction phase 1 mass form and context pool house and 2 pools at 978 32nd Street as per intent statements 4A, 4B, 4C, design guidelines, 4.21, 4.23, 4.24, 4.26, 4.28, 4.4.1, 4.4.2, 4.4.3, and 4.4.4. Presented testimony, submitted documentation, and for information in the staff report.
Thank you, Nick. Do we have a second? Thank you, Lars. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstained? The motion passes.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep prolong it as much as I can.
We're all alone.
You don't have to turn that on. Sorry. I just moved the camera for you.
Okay, so moving on to violations. We have 2025 COA 1078 3421 East Colfax A Place, Frank S. Snell. Do any commission members need to announce ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest for this one? Okay.
My clerk control the slides.
Oh, sorry.
Chatting about something.
Sorry.
Alright.
Okay, so pictured here is 3421 East Colfax A Place located in the Frank S. Snell Historic District. Next slide. 3421 East Colfax A Place was constructed in 1906. It is a contributing building to the Frank S. Snell Historic District. On October 2nd, 2023, the landmark inspector issued a notice of violation for unpermitted site work and window replacement at this property. Landmark staff separated the violations into two separate cases, one for site work and one for windows, prioritizing site work first. And that would be followed by review of the window violation once the updated window design guidelines were in place. So the commission previously reviewed the site work violations first in October of 2024, approving an overheight fence, and then again in August 2025 when a request to maintain much of the non-compliant flat work was denied by the commission. The applicant is working to correct the site work violations by the end of this month. And then the current application before the commission is to address the window violations. So the applicant did indicate or has indicated that they were aware that the building was located in the Frank S. Snell Historic District at the time of purchase, but not aware that that landmark review was required or is required for alterations to the exterior of the building or site that require building or zoning permit. One final note before I move on to the next slide, landmark staff have compiled a separate staff analysis materials document to accompany the applicant's materials to aid the commission in their review. This document includes a case overview matrix, photos of the previous and current site conditions, real estate listings, and the Frank S. Snell Historic District designation, just for your reference. Next slide. So 3421 East Colfax A Place is a 2.5-story, 4-square building with hipped roof dormers. The district designation notes that the architect Frank S. Snell built 3421 Colfax A Place for himself, sparing no details. The building's historic window types include at the basement level, single light awning windows. The first floor windows include cottage style windows with diamond pattern leaded glass upper sashes, fixed windows with a diamond pattern leaded glass pattern, and 2 1/1 double hung windows on the west elevation. The second floor includes cottage style windows with a diamond pattern mutton upper sashes, casement windows with diamond patterned muttons, an arched 1/1 single hung window on the north elevation, and a 1/1 double hung window on the north elevation. Dormer windows include casement windows or fixed with diamond patterned muttons. Next slide. So the applicant's materials indicate that 3 basement windows, F0-1, F0-2, and F0-3, were replaced with fiberglass slider windows on the south, and that's the front and west side elevations. Several images suggest that 3 additional windows may have been replaced on the east and north elevation, but we would need additional photographs to confirm whether or not that's the case. Next slide. On the first floor, 3 of the leaded glass cottage style windows, F1-1, F1-2, and F1-3, and 2 1/1 double hung windows, F1-4 and F1-5, were replaced with fiberglass 1/1 cottage style windows. Next slide. On the second floor, 7 of the diamond mutton cottage style windows, F2-1 through F2-7, on the southwest, north, and east elevations were replaced with 3/1 cottage style fiberglass windows featuring grills between the glass. Additionally, 9 diamond mutton casement windows,
F3-1 through F3-9. And the dormers on the southwest, north, and east elevations were replaced with 3 1/1 double hung encasement fiberglass windows, also with grills between the glass. Next slide. So the home does still retain some of its historic windows. It retains 2 cottage style windows with diamond pattern leaded glass upper sashes under the enclosed front porch, 2 diamond pattern leaded glass fixed windows on the north elevation of the first floor, and 3 diamond pattern mutton casement windows on the south elevation of the second floor. While 3 of the leaded glass cottage style windows were removed entirely, the owner did retain the upper sashes, and those are still on site. And pictures of that are included in the applicant materials. Next slide. So here is a side-by-side comparison showing the front facade prior to replacement and after replacement. There are additional before and after images in the supplemental materials if you want to take a look at that. The applicant is requesting retroactive approval of the existing windows as installed. Next slide. Now I'm going to get into what guidelines apply. On this slide, the applicant has replaced historic character windows without demonstrating deterioration. Although similar in size, the new units do not match the original and profile design appearance or glazing pattern and use grills between the glass. And we're citing guidelines 2.4.5 through 2.4.7. Staff recommend replicating and reconstructing the character windows using remaining and salvaged window materials. Next slide. Moving on to common windows, the applicant replaced 5 common windows with fiberglass windows that do not match the historic windows they replaced. The guidelines support the use of fiberglass replacement materials for common windows, but the replacement windows should better match the historic windows. And we are citing guidelines 2.4.8 and 2.4.9. Next slide. So staff is recommending denial of the application, citing guidelines 2.4.5 through 2.4.9. Just an additional note or two here. We did receive public comment. Those were forwarded on to you by email yesterday for your review. And finally, the applicant does have a presentation, Brittany, if you wanted to bring that up. That's all I have.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions for staff? Thank you.
Yeah, or consider that.
Yeah, so we're ready for, if you guys are the applicant, we're ready for you guys up at the table.
Okay, I think Lisa was gonna go over her presentation.
Okay.
Here virtually?
Yeah, do you know?
Is she attending virtually?
Virtually, yes.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Well, do you want me to start my presentation?
Yes, we are ready.
Oh, okay. Well, hi, everyone. Lisa Vitavelli back again in front of all of you. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. You can go ahead and flip to the next slide. So the purpose of my request is to clarify my decisions with the window replacement, to demonstrate some alignment with the landmark guidelines, and a request approval to retain the existing windows. We move to the next slide. I don't want to belabor this point because I know I've mentioned it to you guys before, but I genuinely had no idea that I was part of Landmark and that I had to go through any sort of approval process to get any of this work done. So I just want to emphasize that, because this is not a scenario where I was just trying to break rules and, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Unfortunately, this is the predicament I'm in. I want to say that I do know that cost is not the primary factor in Landmark decisions. That said, the financial impact of full replacement is significant, and I'm hoping to find a solution that meets the intent of the guidelines without creating an undue burden on me, because my financial situation is very real. So we can move to the next slide. The key question for all of you is full replacement necessary to meet the intent of Landmark guidelines. What was preserved was the original window size, the window placement, the window proportions, and the visual consistency with the neighborhood. Move to the next slide. So I want to point out on this particular slide that the diamond pattern is very much enhanced here. I only had old photos of my house, so zooming in was barely viewable. So I used an app to put it so you could see side by side the diamond design versus the rectangular design that we have installed in 2018. And you can go to the next slide. So although I have the diamond pattern in the original windows, unfortunately, that wasn't an option for me when I was replacing the windows. So I went with the rectangular window because most of the houses in my neighborhood have rectangular windows. So in the specific Frank Snell Historic District, there's 25 homes. I've included 15 examples of windows in addition to my own that are rectangular in design. So the first one is the next slide. The first one is an original window. So this is still they didn't update their windows. This is the historical window of the house that's directly across the street from mine. It was actually the reason why I was like the rectangular design would be complementary to the neighborhood. The next window looks like someone probably bought the same windows that I purchased. It looks very similar. And then there's 13 more examples if you want to just go through the slides and just see just that the entire neighborhood is full of rectangular grills throughout. Okay, and then I do have Mike Gravina that's there in person, who's fortunately been able to come in and demonstrate to you guys in person the differences, and obviously knows the window lingo better than I do. But these are just examples of a side-by-side comparison of the aluminum clad versus the fiberglass. He will go into greater detail on what that all means. We can go to the next slide. Same thing, and then the next slide. So that's he'll speak to this slide, and then the next slide, and then the next slide. And I do want to point this out. I love the look of the historical. Like, I still have some of the leaded glass in my house. I love it. I tried to retain the leaded glass. That's why I had them when they took my windows out to try to salvage it. And what I wanted to do is, because they weren't able to put it on the sash, was to just create like an ornamental piece that was hung in the windows so that I could have that leaded glass. So again, I don't want this to come across that I didn't have respect for the historical integrity. It's just that I was not aware, and I can't go back in time and do those windows. So, and make those decisions that happened in 2018. So the next slide, please. So my ask is just that that we come up with some sort of collaboration that is a reasonable solution to get my house into a compliance that you guys are happy with, but also won't bankrupt me. And I know that, Mike and I have discussed some options of things that might be suitable, and he can go through in his presentation. So I guess that's it for my side of it right now.
Okay. Yeah, so I've brought a few samples in just to kind of show you the different types of windows. So what I have here is a Marvin solid wood window with an extruded aluminum clad, which I believe is approved for the landmark historic homes. Okay. And then Marvin also makes a fiberglass window. Is it possible to go back a few slides side by side? I don't know if I trust it up here to. But anyway, and this is what we did over at Lisa's home. So we did the Marvin Infinity insert fiberglass window, and kind of keeping with our theme when we go forward one more. When we went to do a replacement, because maintaining that historic look was important to her. So with this particular window, it's called an insert window. So what we're looking at here is the existing framing. So this would be the inside casing, the ornate casing. This would be the exterior of the window frame, the existing exterior trim. And this window is designed to sit in that pocket. So what it does is, as we're kind of looking through some of those pictures, the sight lines are very uniform.
I can interrupt you because I believe what you installed, the material is per the guidelines.
Yeah.
So it's the operation that and the patterning.
Yes,
Those
the
are
grill pattern. Yep.
Those are the issues.
So that was just kind of what I wanted to start with there, because we did want to try to save as much of those windows as possible. Now, in terms of the operation, they're, for the most part, except the basement windows, they're pretty much identical what was there. Double hung windows, cottage style with the grill work. Now, some of her windows do have the grills between her glass, but majority of them have the simulated divided light. So you got an exterior grill on the exterior part of the glass, inside with a spacer bar. Okay, so that is on a good chunk of her windows. The GBGs, or the grills between the glass, were primarily the ones that weren't necessarily visible to the street. So we can bring those up to compliance. So we can convert those without having to tear out the whole window and redoing it. We can convert those sashes to the current pattern in that SDO. So we can do that. So that's kind of what we're asking, is to maintain the windows, the efficiency, the operation, without having to go in and redo everything, and just replace those windows that to meet compliance, basically at a minimal financial impact to Lisa. So that's kind of what I wanted to show on here. And just the fact that, sight lines, that's really designed to kind of keep that look. So placement, sizing basically was all retained from the original windows. And it was very a less intrusive way to do this by still keeping those architectural details. And that kind of also shows with like the detail, the glazing, putty glazed look on the outside, what you find in those historic homes, the OG inside edge. So that's kind of what I wanted to show, and with the props in here, so you can kind of see it in person on there.
Yeah.
Do you have questions?
No, so you're actually out of time, but thank you for going through that. So now, Commission, do we have any questions for the applicant?
I suppose, staff didn't get into the timeline, but was there a study done at any point of the historic windows to determine condition and need for replacement?
Not that we have, we were called out in 2017 to do that. Going through our records back then, we didn't have a whole lot on there, but there was some degradation to the frame at the bottoms of them. So that's basically why Lisa called us out, that she was having issues with the windows in terms of just the aging of it.
I think Lisa can answer that too.
What's that?
I think Lisa can answer that because I think she did try to find some way to preserve the lead iron or the lead glass in the front because we wanted to try to implement that for the window that we put in. So I know that she did try to find people that could salvage that, and that it was shot. The glass had bowed, the framing was shot, which that wasn't the hard part, was the wood framing around as much as the glass had bowed, and there wasn't a way to salvage that lead iron. I know that she did try to do that before, and then we tried to figure out a way to implement it into the window.
Lisa, I do have a question for you. Since
Sure.
you're in a historic district, are you utilizing the tax credit program by chance to help
Oh,
offset
and
these costs?
well, and that's exactly, I should have pointed that out myself, is unfortunately because I already took out the windows and now we're not dealing with the original windows, I no longer qualify for any of the grants. So that's part of the problem for me financially, is that I don't qualify, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think my question more of just in terms of funding projects on a historic house or property in general. More curious if you were aware of the tax credits and if you're utilizing them, not specifically for this window project per
No.
se.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, the work, well, what I've done so far, the work was completed before I knew that any of that was an option. So I'm at future stuff. Sure. Now I do. So I would love to be able to take advantage of that, but I did not know that before.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
And I want to say too, like the windows that I know, so like the front of my house, that porch was put on at some point. I don't know when, well before I bought it, but they're the big picture windows. So everything that is facade facing, I still have those leaded windows that face the street. And my house is about 14 feet away from both sides of my side houses. I'm in a big Denver square on a small lot. So to see the side windows where I tried to salvage the leaded glass, those are really mostly only something you would see from inside my home, which, like I said, I wanted for myself. But from a street facade standpoint, you can't even really see those unless you're going along the side of my yard, because it's such a narrow gap between me and my neighbor. And the ones that face the street are still there, the ones with the leaded glass.
Hey, Lisa, I have a quick question. When did you replace the windows? Were they all done at the same time? Or I guess two questions.
Yeah.
When did you do it, and were they all done at the same time?
Yes, 2018, I replaced the windows, all of them. Not all of them, I shouldn't say that. All the windows I replaced all happened at the same time in 2018.
In 2018. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now the commission will move into deliberation. So you're free to, go back to your seat. Thank you. Okay, commissioners, what are our thoughts and comments? Oh, okay, yep, go ahead, Jesse.
So just a couple of things really quickly. So the applicant did acknowledge that they were aware that this was Snell's personal home, and that this was part of the Snell district, as it was all included in the state listing, which I included in those supplemental materials. I would also say we've already pointed this out, Nick, Our concern isn't necessarily with material, it's that the profiles don't match the historic character window profiles at all. And it was uncertain what the condition of those windows were, or they were removed and replaced. And then to kind of go on a little further with Chris's question, we do realize this was done in 2018. It was a district. It was clearly in a district and still would have required our review and would have required a permit. And I would say that violations, they travel with the property, it doesn't matter when they were done, is still a violation, and we do have to address that. I guess one other thing that I would say, staff is more concerned with pattern profile and materials, or excuse me, pattern profile and appearance. Thank you.
I'll just jump into it because unfortunately I have to leave, and if I leave, we have to stop.
Yes.
And I don't want to stop, but I also don't want to rush people. Violation cases are never fun because we are dealing with so many different factors, and you know, a little bit of, not to put it lightly, but he said, she said, or kind of whether the applicant understood they were in a district or not, unfortunately, kind of has no bearing on this issue. And personally, you know, I think these clearly don't meet the design guidelines, even the more liberally applied ones that we have today, which focus on the character windows that have been lost. And so while I don't take any pleasure in this, I strongly believe that it should be denied, because I think we've lost something by losing these character windows, that some effort needs to be put into making that right. Maybe there's a way to have, like, some are okay and some are not as far as replacement goes, but I think that needs to be a much more detailed conversation than what we have before us today. So I would say that I support denial at this time, with an openness to looking at, could some of the replacement windows be retained in the future if it means getting the character windows back.
And I want to put, yeah, can I jump in real quick? I totally agree that you know, the violations are pretty clear, especially when it comes to the guidelines. My concern is kind of the statute of, you know, of how long can we go back and start applying violations to people on historic structures. Is there any kind of time limit? And maybe this is an attorney question, of how long we can start applying violations? You know, is it 8, 10, 15, 20, 30 years? How long can this be applicable? And I have some concern about, you know, implementing violations that are 8 years old, even though they clearly violate, you know, our guidelines. So I just wanted to, you know, open that up for a discussion, or even attorney, you know, weigh in.
Sure, Adam Hernandez, Assistant City Attorney. There is no code language that limits enforcement of violations. So that's the best we have right now.
But so I don't know if people understand maybe where I'm coming from. Like, so we can start issuing violations for 25-year-old things, like somebody replaced a window 25 years ago, and say they violated our guidelines to this date. I mean, it just gets very convoluted, right?
Are we dealing with the same owner though? I mean, again, I don't think that's actually within our something to decide or consider by, but I think it happened a while ago, but it's also been an ongoing process to try to work with the owner to right all the problems that occurred. So it's part of the process. So this could have been, raised several years ago, I think it was. But it's taken this long to get to this point because we've been dealing with other issues on this property as well.
All I'm saying is it can get a slippery slope, right?
So we've known about this violation for a while. It was initially issued in 2023, correct, Jesse? We have been trying to work with this owner to resolve several violations, as Erica has already mentioned. We paused this window violation because we knew we were working on Windows guidelines and hopes to provide some additional flexibility for these window replacement applications. We look at violations very carefully, and we are not actively seeking out 20-year-old violations, 10-year-old violations. But this was done not in compliance with our current guidelines and with a new owner. So we did cite this property because it was in violation of the landmark ordinance and the zoning and building code. So as Adam said, there is no statute of limitation, and therefore we did pursue this as a violation.
A motion. Unfortunately, I really have to go. I would like to make a motion and see if you guys all agree with it or not. However, it might be the most helpful to have it back up on the screen if possible. Thank you. Madam Chair, I move to deny application number 2025-COA-1078 for the window violation at 3421 East Colfax A Place, as per design guidelines 2.4.5 through 2.4.9, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report.
I'll second. Thank you, Erica.
Emily?
I'll second. Yeah, thank you, Emily. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'd like to abstain, please.
All those abstain? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
We do have a business item which we can still hear without
So next for the discussion items, these are informational items or items for commission to discuss without action. We will announce each discussion item. Staff will introduce the informational item or item for discussion, and then the commission will discuss amongst ourselves and with staff. No action or votes will be taken for these discussion items. Today, we have the LPC Design Review Rules and Regulations Update provided by Jen.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm not in person, but I needed to keep my germs to myself. I'm under the weather, but recovering. So I wanted to present the Design Review Rules and Regulations update to you all as an informational discussion item prior to a public hearing that would happen next month. So let's discuss it today, and then we can hopefully get it adopted next month. So the original Design Review Rules and Regulations were adopted by the LPC in 2015. This is only for LPC. This is not for the Lower Downtown Design Review Commission, so we don't have to review this with them. Our current update was really was primarily to allow for compliance with the affordable housing fast track projects associated with State Proposition 123. That requires 90-day review of applications for affordable housing fast track projects that qualify for this fast track, and it's 90 days of staff and applicant time, so it is very, very condensed time frame. But we also took advantage of the update to propose some edits and clarifications. Next slide, please. All right. So there are 5 sections of the design guideline, or sorry, the design review rules and regulations. One is the purpose of it. We just made some minor changes there. Section 2 was definitions. Oh boy, my kid is home. Hold on. Actually, he's not home. Someone's knocking on the door. Anyway, I will continue this. The the design review rules and regs had definitions that were very redundant with the design guidelines and with our zoning code and our ordinance, and so we took out those definitions. Section 3 is all about the 2-step review process for new, hold on a second, sorry. Sorry everyone about that. Okay. Our neighbors kids lost their ball in our backyard. Very important stuff. So okay, the Section 3 was about the 2-phase process for new infill projects in historic districts and individual landmark sites. We wanted to clarify that this is only for new primary structures and tandem houses, not for ADUs, not for garages. It was a little ambiguous, but this is the process we were doing. We also wanted to clarify what's reviewed in each phase of this, and we also added information about what happens if, which happens all the time, when an applicant makes some changes after phase 1 approval, and then they submit for phase 2's design detail submittal to you all. So we wanted to make some clarifications there. Next slide. All right, this is the big change. So we added a section 4. Section 4 used to be about the R&O process, referral process. We moved that down to section 5. So we added a totally new section about fast track affordable housing reviews. What this is going to do is to have LPC review only for phase 1 mass form and context. The commission can provide feedback on design details during the phase 1 review, but staff review will happen for phase 2, and that will take place during permitting. So again, it's a phase 1 review only, mass form and context for LPC review, and then the rest of it will be staff review. Next slide. All right, we shifted the R&O referral process to section 5. We made a couple of small changes. We felt one of them is that R&O referral will no longer take place will not take place at all for affordable housing fast track reviews because of that expedited timeline. It's just not possible for that to happen. That there's a 3-week referral process because of these expedited reviews. We also removed ADUs from R&O referral, and that is because now that ADUs are allowed citywide, we felt strongly that the ADUs were not impacting historic districts to the same extent that new buildings or pop-tops are affecting historic districts. We also are making updates to our design guidelines, hopefully this year, to allow some ADUs to potentially be administrative reviews. And so removing ADUs from R&O referral, we felt would be a good first step there to allow for some ADUs to be more administrative reviews. We also removed the RNO design review training requirement. It's a lot of work for staff. We don't do it. We haven't done it in a couple of years just because we have not simply had time. So we removed that. And we listed the minimum requirements for the content for RNO letters or for verbal comments that the RNO rep would provide during LPC meetings or into the letters to you all. Next slide. I lied when I said that there were 5 sections. There's 6. We added a 6th section about withdrawing inactive applications because we didn't have that in there before. It's a fairly simple section. So that is the main summary of it. If you go to the next slide, I think I have a timeline here. So we had a public review draft that was out for 2 weeks at the end of March to April 7th. We sent that to we put it on our website. We sent it out to RNOs who do design review and who have been gone through our process and trainings before. We sent it out to frequent applicants. We sent it out to attendees of our design guideline update meetings. We sent it out to preservation partners as well. Today, we're doing the discussion item. We need to file the final draft with the clerk and recorder next Wednesday. And then the goal is to have a public hearing on May 19th with you all. We received 1 public comment. We're grateful to have any public comment on that. So really glad that Honey, Highland United Neighbors, Inc., provided comment. Their comment is on the next slide, which is, and I will provide this to you all during the public hearing as well, and any other comments that come in at that point. But they didn't like the fact that the large scale projects, it was omitted as a definition from the RNO referral process, and instead it's just infill construction and rooftop additions. It's no longer ADUs. So they are concerned about that aspect. Those are my comments and summary, and happy to have a discussion with you all about what this update is all about. And if you have any questions, comments, etc.
Thank you.
The ADUs would still be able to be elevated to design review for staff?
Yeah.
Or no?
I had a little hard time hearing you, Emily. I think that's Emily.
Will the staff still be able to elevate to ADUs to design review if there are concerns?
Yes, to LPC. Yes, absolutely. And we haven't adopted an administrative RNO review process yet. That would potentially be part of the next phase of the design guideline update this year or early next year. But it's something that we are working on.
So right now, all ADUs are required to come to LPC. So there would still be an opportunity for all RNOs to provide public comment. We just wouldn't be doing that
solicitation yet.
Yeah, early solicitation.
Would the applicant be able to request review?
I mean, applicants are always welcome to go to the RNOs to have their applications reviewed. We just, right now, we require new infill construction, ADUs, and pop-top additions. So with that 3-week RNO referral process and our 6-week filing deadline, it is a 9-week process before you can come before the commission. And because the state laws had changed 2 years ago now to allow ADUs citywide, we decided to remove ADUs this time from the design review referral. But we are also hopeful to implement administrative review for ADUs with the design guideline update. So it's kind of like a multi-step process that we're planning for.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just miss.
Yeah, we have a lot that we're going
I think all the proposed changes are good and moves to expedite the process, so I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you. If you all have any comments, you're welcome to send those to me by email. You're welcome, any member of the public is welcome to provide that information to me as well. We will be doing a public hearing on May 19th to share the final draft and all of that. So thank you for listening and sticking around. And for the ball that ended up in my backyard.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that is the end of our agenda. So with that, our meeting is adjourned right at 4 p.m.
Thanks.